What happens when the gears of justice are weaponized? When a courtroom, a sanctuary of law, is turned into a political ambush? Imagine a nation on a knife's edge, its fate hanging in the suffocating heat of a single room. Today, we journey into the heart of that storm to tell the untold story of the day they tried to break a leader and instead revealed the true face of power. This is the story of a trial that was never about the law and a judge who made a choice that would echo across a continent. This is the story of the day they tried to arrest Captain Ibrahim Traoré. He is the man who inherited a nation on fire. Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Before he was a president, he was a soldier on the front lines, watching his country, Burkina Faso, be consumed by a brutal insurgency. A nation rich in gold, in culture, in spirit, brought to its knees by shadowy extremist groups who roamed the vast Sahelian plains. For years, the people had cried out. They had watched as governments came and went, as foreign allies offered promises that turned to dust, as the body count rose and hope dwindled into a bitter whisper. Out of this desperation, he emerged. In September 2022, the 34-year-old captain took the reins of the state. It was not a grab for personal glory, his supporters claimed, but an act of national survival. His voice cut through the political noise with a soldier's clarity. The message was electrifying. The era of dependency is over. We will fight our own battles. We will reclaim our sovereignty. We will win our own war. He moved with lightning speed. He severed old colonial ties that felt more like chains and forged new alliances. He called upon the youth of the nation to defend their homeland, creating a massive volunteer force. And, most controversially, he turned his eyes to the immense mineral wealth being extracted from Burkina Faso soil, wealth that flowed into foreign corporate accounts while his soldiers fought with aging equipment. He made a decree that would shake the foundations of international business in West Africa. A portion of that wealth would be redirected, nationalized, to fund the war for survival. His people roared their approval, but in the boardrooms of Paris and London, and in the shadowy halls of the old political guard he had displaced, that roar was a declaration of war. An enemy had been made. An enemy with deep pockets and long arms. They would not challenge him on the battlefield that was his territory. Instead, they chose a different weapon, the law. A lawsuit, labyrinthine in its complexity, was filed. It accused Traoré's government of illegal appropriation, of breaking international contracts, of being nothing more than a uniformed thief. It was a brilliant trap. They demanded the captain himself appear in court to testify. He would be forced into their arena, a place of procedure and protocol, stripped of his military authority. They believed that in the sterile environment of a courtroom, they could dismantle the myth and expose the man. They had no idea they were about to create a legend. The day arrived like a fever. The Palace of Justice in Ouagadougou was more than a building. It was the epicenter of a nation's anxiety. The Sahelian sun beat down relentlessly, but the heat inside was of a different kind. It was the heat of friction, of opposing forces crammed into one space. Every seat was a story. There sat the Western diplomats, their faces impassive masks, observing the fate of their investments. Beside them, local dignitaries and political rivals, their eyes glinting with anticipation. And behind them, packing the galleries, were the people. Students, market women, off-duty soldiers, their faces a tapestry of hope and fear. They had come to bear witness, to protect their captain with their presence. The air was a thick cocktail of sweat, perfume, and pure, unadulterated tension. The whirring of the ceiling fans was a lonely sound against the expectant silence. Then, through a side door, he entered. In his signature battle fatigues and red beret, Ibrahim Traoré walked into the lion's den. He did not carry himself like a defendant. He moved with the unshakable calm of a commander inspecting his troops. He didn't avoid their gazes. He met them. He saw the cameras, a forest of glass and steel, and offered them nothing but his composure. He nodded to his supporters, a small, firm gesture that spoke volumes. He took his seat, and the room held its breath. At the head of the court sat Chief Justice Adama, a man whose face was etched with the wisdom and weariness of a decades-long career. A jurist renowned for one thing above all, his fierce, incorruptible independence. The trap was set. The proceedings began. For what felt like an eternity, the prosecution lawyers wove their web. They spoke of contractual obligations, of bilateral investment treaties, of the sanctity of international law. Their words were precise, their arguments polished. It was a performance of legal mastery, designed to paint the captain as a reckless amateur, an autocrat tearing down a world of civilized rules. And just as the lawyer paused, dabbing sweat from his brow, the ambush was sprung. From the second row, 2 men rose. They were not in uniform. They wore simple civilian clothes that seemed ill-fitting, unable to conceal their coiled, muscular frames. They were agents of the Internal Intelligence Service, a department still seated with loyalists of the old regime. Their movements were quiet, but everyone felt them. A ripple of motion in a still pond. They began to walk, purposefully, directly towards Captain Traoré's table. The silence in the room became a physical thing, a pressure on the ears. The frantic clicking of camera shutters was the only sound, like a swarm of metallic insects. A gasp was heard from the gallery. Traoré's personal guards, seated just behind him, were on their feet in a heartbeat, their hands instinctively moving to their sidearms. The room was a spark away from an inferno, a shootout in the highest court of the land. But Traoré, the man at the center of the storm, did not flinch. He slowly, deliberately, raised a single hand, palm open. It was not a gesture of surrender, but of command. "Stand down," it said. He remained seated, watching the 2 men approach, his expression unreadable. Chaos was a breath away. And then, a voice that did not shout, but sliced through the tension with the authority of absolute power. A single word, spoken from the judge's bench, that hit the room like a gavel of thunder. "Stop." The 2 agents froze in their tracks. Every head, every camera, every eye snapped towards Chief Justice Adama. He was leaning forward, his gaze burning with a cold fire. He struck his gavel once, the sound echoing like a rifle shot in the cavernous room. "In this chamber," the Chief Justice declared, his voice ringing with indignation, "there is only one authority, and it is the authority of the law of Burkina Faso. And the only voice that commands is mine. This is a court of justice, not a back alley for political scores. You will return to your seats. You will do it now, or you will be held in contempt of this entire nation." The agents stood for a moment, suspended between 2 impossible choices. Their mission, their orders, lay before them. But the raw, undeniable power of the judiciary, embodied by the old man on the bench, held them paralyzed. They exchanged a single panicked glance. Their conspiracy had crumbled in a sentence. Defeated, they turned and walked, not back to their seats, but out of the courtroom entirely, swallowed by the shadows from which they came. A collective sigh of relief and triumph swept through the gallery. The immediate threat was gone, but the moment was not over. In the ringing silence, Captain Ibrahim Traoré rose to his feet. He did not look at the door, where his would-be captors had vanished. He looked directly at the Chief Justice. When he spoke, his voice was not loud, but it filled every corner of the room. It was the voice of a man who had stared into the abyss and had not blinked. "Mr. Chief Justice," he began, "I thank you. You have not just defended me. You have defended the honor of this court, and you have defended the very soul of Burkina Faso. Today, we have all been shown the truth. We have all seen that this trial was never about a mining contract." He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the diplomats, the politicians, the people. He was no longer a witness. He was a leader on his own stage. This is about our future. It is a battle between those who believe Burkina Faso can determine its own destiny and those who wish to keep us on our knees, puppets controlled by strings from thousands of miles away. My government is at war. Right now, as I speak, the sons and daughters of our nation are in the bush, fighting and dying to reclaim our land from terrorists. They fight for every inch of our home. And yet, there are those here, in this very city, in these comfortable rooms, who would rather fight their own government. They use the law as a weapon to stab our soldiers in the back. They seek to paralyze us, to choke our war effort, to make us fail. He took a step forward, his voice rising with passion. Let me be clear to everyone in this room, and to everyone in this nation. They will fail. Their plots are nothing compared to the will of the Burkinabe people. Their legal games are nothing compared to the courage of our soldiers. This transition, this fight for our total independence, will continue. And, with God's help and the strength of our people, we will be victorious. He finished. He did not sit. He stood, a living symbol of defiance. For a moment, there was silence. Then, from the back of the gallery, a single person began to clap. Then another, and another. Within seconds, the courtroom erupted in a thunderous ovation, a tidal wave of support that washed over the rigid protocols of the court. The trial was over. The verdict had been delivered, not by the judge, but by the people. Before the judge could even adjourn, the news was escaping the Palace of Justice like wildfire. Blurry phone videos of the judge's rebuke and the captain's speech were spreading through WhatsApp groups, ricocheting across social media. The hashtag number "We Are With the Captain" was trending across West Africa. What was intended as a humiliation had become a coronation. The opposition's attempt to paint Traore as a lawless dictator had backfired spectacularly. Instead, they were the ones who looked like clumsy conspirators, disrespecting the nation's highest court. Traore, by submitting to the court's authority and then turning the moment into a declaration of national pride, had emerged as both a defender of the law and a revolutionary hero. Spontaneous rallies bloomed across Ouagadougou. Thousands poured into the streets, waving the nation's flag, chanting his name. They were not just celebrating a man. They were celebrating a victory over what they saw as the shadowy forces of neocolonialism and corrupt internal enemies. This event was a political earthquake. It solidified Traore's power in a way no military parade ever could. It gave him the popular mandate to purge his government and security forces of suspected dissenters, all under the banner of protecting the nation from saboteurs. It sent a shockwave across the Sahel, a clear signal to the world that the new generation of military leaders in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger were not isolated strongmen. They were riding a powerful wave of popular support, and they would not be easily dislodged by legal challenges or international pressure. The future of Burkina Faso is still being written in blood, sweat, and hope. The war is not over. The challenges are immense. But for those who study the intricate dance of power, law, and revolution, the memory of that day in court will endure. The day a trap was set, a judge stood his ground, and a captain turned his trial into a triumph. It forces us to ask ourselves the most difficult questions. In a nation's desperate fight for survival, what is the true meaning of justice? Is it found in the cold letter of the law, or in the passionate will of the people? Where is the line between a patriot and a dictator, between a liberator and an autocrat? That line is perhaps drawn in moments exactly like this one, in the crucible of a crisis, where the future of millions is decided not by a vote, but by a voice that dares to cut through the silence. The world is full of such moments, hidden behind the headlines. Stay informed, stay critical, and never stop asking questions. If you believe that these conversations are vital, that we must look deeper than the headlines to understand the forces shaping our world, then join this community. Liking this video tells the world that thoughtful content still matters. Subscribing and hitting the notification bell ensures you will never miss our next journey into the complex heart of history. This is more than a channel. It is a commitment to understanding. Thank you for being a part of it. Stay informed and stay critical.